This is Rabbi Aaron Boxt, back with my podcast for this week. This week we are here at Temple Beth Shalom. We are celebrating Pride Month in our service on Friday night. And I want to make it very clear that we are celebrating the right and the rights that have been granted and been given to members of the LGBTQ plus community, which they have fought long and hard for. And these days, in this political climate that we live in, there seems to be a lot of angst and anger and anxiety from lots of different organizations and different groups that are taking away the significance of these rights, not the fact that they have the rights, but the fact that everyone understands that they have these rights because they're human beings. And again, we are not celebrating a person being gay or black or Jewish or whatever. We're celebrating the fact that they have equal rights as they should have from the get-go. And it's been a long struggle for them. Next week, we are going to be commemorating Juneteenth in our service like we did last year. Because once again, the significance of recognizing these events, these historical events, these historical changing of from one direction to another, meaning from really being in the wrong to finally being in the right, it's important for us to continue to celebrate these moments of truth finally being and freedom being given to people who are really no different than anybody else. They're not any less or more different than anybody else from another group, right? So in our attempt to reach for equality and equity, we sometimes forget the challenges and the struggles that were a part of that journey. And I think of the Florida government, the Florida governor, trying to silence the LGBTQ plus voice and to silence really any voice that is different from what is their own. Last year, my family and I were in Orlando, and we just happened to be across the street from the Pulse nightclub, and we didn't even know it when we got there. And we took some time to go over there and read about what happened and show our kids, how the community outpoured in support of them. And I noticed that there were police cars there because the government had the Florida government, specifically the governor, had stated that they couldn't paint the crosswalk in the rainbow colors as they had because it was against something or another. And the police were there to make sure that it wasn't changed because there had been back and forth. This is so ridiculous that we're still in the 21st century in 2026, halfway through 2026, and we're still fighting over equality. What does it mean? If a person is different from you, that's good. That's good because it enables both of you to learn about the other. And we forget that. And, it's not just... Look, as a rabbi, one of the biggest challenges I'm facing today is those who try to equate Judaism with Israel, or who try and say that you can't be a Zionist and be Jewish, or if you are a Zionist, then you are a racist. There's so much misinformation out there. And people are using social media as an excuse or a resource to support these horribly inaccurate and ignorant beliefs out there. If a Jewish person says, I don't want to support Israel, he or she has that right to say that. But for them to say that if I do support Israel, then that means I don't want the Palestinians to have a place to live, that I don't want equality in the Middle East, that's ridiculous. I also can be a Zionist and disagree with the government in Israel, just like Americans who don't agree with the government here in the United States. That doesn't make them any less of an American. As a matter of fact, I think it actually makes them more of an American to be able to argue against the government, because our country was built on the ability for people to have freedom of speech and religion and to question when things don't seem right. I mean, the very famous joke that if you ask 3 different Jewish people their opinion, you're going to get 9 or 10 different opinions. That's because it's important for us to continually seek answers. And sometimes the answer that we get actually puts us in another direction to ask a different question. And that's okay. We have to be able to get along and understand that asking questions and criticizing the government or criticizing organizations that we don't believe are saying or doing the right thing, we have to be able to have that ability. Because if we don't, then not only do we run into autocratic dictatorship type of governments and countries, but also we are doomed to repeat the problems, the mistakes that were made in the past. Now, I know that there's some people out there, for some reason, that still think X, Y, or Z, even though it has been disproved. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to look at someone and say, they're just ignorant. It's just buffoon. They're just a buffoon. And that's okay. And one day, maybe God willing, they'll learn the truth and they'll get educated, and hopefully that'll happen. But we can't dwell on all of that. What we can dwell on is making sure that we reach out to those that we don't agree with, to those that don't understand where we're coming from, and try to have an adult conversation where people are allowed to speak and listen to the other. Speak to and listen to the other. And that is a sorely missing in our dialogue these days, in our communications with other people. Look, I'm a Reform rabbi living in Florida. There are lots of things about being a Reform rabbi living in Florida that are really, really hard, that are really, really difficult. But on the other hand, there's lots of opportunity for growth and education and learning here. Not just from me, but also to me. I have just as much to learn as the next person, if they're willing to learn from me as well. And we may disagree, and we may never agree, and that's okay. That is okay. What is not okay is for a person to believe something that is absolutely not true, that is false, that is ignorant, that is dangerous to others. All of that is not okay. If at the end of the day you still feel a particular way, you know what? Then I hope that one day you'll change your mind, but but turning away and not even having the conversation is not okay. And that's the problem. Too many people right now are too busy talking and not listening. There needs to be a lot more listening as well. As we celebrate Pride Month, as we celebrate Juneteenth, as we celebrate all of the amazing, wonderful things that our world offers, may we get to the point one day where we can look outside and embrace each other regardless of how we look, regardless of how we sound. That is what I hope for, and that is what I pray for. I wish everyone an early Shabbat Shalom.